So, just for everybody watching, what we're kind of talking about here is that Nat did a process on me 2 days
With
ago,
you.
and with me, yes, exactly. And I felt like it was on me, man. Um, and we did this specifically for this show so that I can give everybody kind of an idea of my perspective of it and what it did for me and the benefit that I felt. And we throughout this interview, we're going to throw little segments of that into the editing so that you can kind of get an idea of how how non-evasive it is. I mean, this isn't like, where Nat is, trying to break me down and to get me to cry and or be angry or anything like that. It's so non-evasive. It's really, really, really powerful. So, Nat, tell them what it is. Tell them what it's about. Tell them how it came about, because I think it's a really interesting story.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you so much, Ross. Again, I'm grateful to be here. We've had a relationship for a long time. So, I never take that for granted. Um, what we're talking about today is facing our resistance. And what that looks like is specifically looking at the ways that we get in our own way, whether that looks like procrastination or perfectionism, um, or it could even look like people pleasing and overthinking and all the ways that we get in our own ways or we hold ourselves back. In some people might call that self-sabotage. In my coaching exploration, I also let people know it's a form of self-protection. And so quickly, how it came about, how this process came about, and this process is what I now call the resistance release technique. Um, was that yeah, last year I wanted to record a video. I had this insight. I got excited. I'm like, okay, I'm going to record this video. I'm going to post it on my Instagram account. And then there was just kind of some resistance. I overthought it. Um I wanted to get it right. I was trying to figure out the technology. How do I work the subtitles thing? And I went into this rabbit hole of research, like, okay, I do this, or I could do this, or I could do this. And it just started to wear me down because I wasn't really getting to just recording it. So then finally I said, to hell with the subtitles. I'm just going to record and post it. And then that same kind of like, no, 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 like it feels almost like being repelled from doing what I want to do. And so there was like a lot of self-negotiating, like, come on, just do it. And then like holding back, and then come on, just do it, and then holding back. So finally, um, I sat down with my coaching framework, which we'll talk a little bit about later, and intuitively asked myself questions. And by the end of this process, I recorded the video and posted it. Like no resistance, none of that like internal discomfort, visceral discomfort that got in the way. It was just like not there anymore. And I was able to post it. And and I think it's also important to share that this sort of thing has been going on my whole life. This thing of wanting to do something and the holding back, wanting to do something, oh, let's wait for the right time. Maybe I need a haircut first. Maybe I need to lose weight first. Maybe I don't have the technology right. Maybe I got to learn the technology first. You know, like all possible excuses to not do. Oh, I'm hungry right now. Oh, let me go clean the dishes. Like, I found
Exactly.
every possible thing to not do the thing that I wanted to do. Right.
Right.
That felt meaningful for me to do. So I want to put that out there that this is not like, oh, just suddenly I overcame the resistance and this is just a one-time thing. No, no, this has been my whole life.
Mm, right.
So to have discovered this or created this process was huge for me. And I then invited colleagues, friends, people on social media. I just posted like, hey, I created this thing. I don't know if it works for anyone else. It seemed to work for me. Let's try it out. And time and time again, people came and they experienced some shift, whether that was wanting to um, make time to exercise and work on their meal planning. Um, you know, like I had one woman come
Right.
in and, she spent years wanting to exercise, wanting to prioritize her health, and always found a reason to not to, always felt like she didn't have time. And then after the session, she reported back, oh my God, I'm exercising. I'm, taking walks, I'm making time for myself, I'm planning meals. Like, and then like someone else might come to me and say, Nat, I have this new body of work. I'm really excited about it, but I'm not talking about it. And he's like, and this has been going on for months. And I thought that it was because I needed some structure, like I needed this worksheet and so my husband asked me, what is it do you want? Describe it to me and I'll create it for you. And he created for her and she's like, oh, this is exactly what I want. And she didn't talk about her work. So we did the
Hmm.
session and she's like, "Oh my God, Nat, I'm now talking about my work and my new body work in my Facebook group and people are loving it and I'm getting positive feedback and like thank you so much." These are just two examples of what transpired as a result of going through the process. What does matter is that you have a specific thing that it's about leveling up in
Right.
your business.
Okay.
Um, and we'll what I'm gonna do is share a little bit about like how this came to be. I'll go over what self-sabotage is with you. I know we talked a little bit about it, but just
Right.
kind of to refresh your memory, and then we'll jump into the process.
Well, I can attest to the fact that after we finished with the process, I was looking for things to do. I mean, I felt lighter and I felt that I was in a just a flow state. And generally, it takes a little bit to get into the flow state, but I was just like instantly in flow state. I'm like, okay, this is what I'm going to go do. And then boom, I was just, whew. And it was an amazing sensation. And I got a lot done that day. And so this is something that I mean, I've gone through and have a lot of processes that I've developed and that other coaches have shared with me and such. But this was something else, and it
Mm.
really, really was. So you're looking at not even just something that will minimize, if not eliminate, procrastination, but it takes away. It goes deeper than just putting it off. It goes down to getting to the root of why you're putting it off. Is that correct?
Yeah, and I mean it does. It does reach the root because if we don't reach the root, then we end up trying to overcome through the ways that we've learned to overcome, and not necessarily effective, right? Like it's like for the time being, whether that's productivity hacks, time blocking or mindset, like, I can't tell you how many years where I try to work on my mindset to overcome this and it didn't work, right? And I think a big reason is because for this to work, we need to be in our bodies. We need to be in touch with the sensations and really be present with ourselves in our body. Um, I've
Okay,
lived a
let's let's
lifetime.
let's let's stop
Yeah.
there for just a second. Let's define what that means because I know that a lot of people listening, they hear it all the time. Oh, you have to be with yourself, you have to be in the now, you have to be in your body and stuff like
Mm,
that. What exactly does that mean to
yeah,
be in your body? Of course, I'm in my body. I'm here. I can touch myself. Oh, I'm in my
sure,
body. So what
sure.
does that mean when people when coaches are telling people you need to be in your body, you need to be in touch with your body? What does that mean?
Yeah, that's a great question, Ross. Um, the way it means for me, I don't know how everyone else means it, but the way it means for me is that I'm in touch with or I'm aware of what is currently present. So all the sensations, all the feelings, the emotions, um, I'm not trying to explain them. I'm not trying to make them go away. I'm not making them wrong. I'm just completely in presence and acceptance and allowing of what is here. Um, I and we could just do it a moment here where, as you're listening or, just take stock of what do you notice in your present space. Whether that's what's around you, like, okay, on my desk, I'm noticing I have a bunch of papers. They're not organized, but it's just is what it is, and I'm not going to do anything with it. It's been this way for a while. I'm also noticing that I'm sitting up straighter, that my voice is deep and resonant, um, that I'm saying and I'm chuckling at that. And then, oh, okay, now I'm starting to notice how else am I sitting here? Oh, that I'm feeling the weight of my body being supported by the chair. And I'm noticing that my feet are on the floor, but they're not touching the ground evenly. One is more flat and the left side is more raised. Um, and then if I were to go a little bit more, I was like, oh, I have a slight headache. I've had it all morning, but I'm just noticing now it's not as much as it was. And as I notice that, I'm also noticing that, okay, I have a little bit of sensation on my abdomen around my solar plexus, just underneath my ribs. It's not quite a contraction. Maybe it is. I'm not sure. It doesn't matter. I'm just noticing it, right? So this is what I mean to be present with ourselves is to just,
And
yeah.
And what I noticed when I went through it as well is that, for example, you were mentioning it was I'm sitting in my chair and such, and the first thing that pops into my mind is that oh, I'm slouching, and I was going to correct my slouch, but I'm like, no, this is how I am. I'm noticing how I am. It's not about doing something about it. It's about noticing it. That's it, right?
Yeah, noticing. If you feel inspired to, called to correct it, go ahead, right? It's not stopping you from doing that, but just definitely notice because um, a lot of the times we are we are focused on what is ahead of us. Like, we're thinking, oh, I'm not there yet, and then we're not seeing what's here, right? Or we're focused on what's wrong, and then we're also not seeing what's here, right? And so when we are focused on the future or complaining about the past, we're really more in our heads. We're thinking about something and we're in the experience of the narrative that we're in, but we're not actually here, right? We're not really in touch with what's here right now in the moment, with the trees or the clouds or the cars or other people. We're in the story and a lot of us tend to live in the story because it feels safer to it. We get occupied by the
Right.
stories, right? because we think that if we think about the stories enough that we can somehow solve them, and we judge so much about where we are in life and how we think we should be or how we think we shouldn't be, that we're not actually living what's here. We're not actually
Hmm.
responding to what's here. And so that's the thing with the resistance also, is that we we have a thought about something we don't like. Sometimes there's a thought, sometimes it just comes up in the body, right? And sometimes it's just such a quick thought, such a quick reaction, almost like a loop that we go into. Like you sit down to write something, and then your mind goes to, oh, but what if they don't like it? And what if I look stupid? And what if this doesn't work? We're already in the narrative. And then as a response, will feel our body will feel tension, stress. And then we've learned to avoid pain, discomfort, right? We've learned to distract ourselves from that. And so then what do? We look for more distractions. Oh, I'm going to scroll social media. I'm going to go research. And some of it looks very socially acceptable. I'm going to go take a nap. I'm going to go take care of my kids. I'm going to go take care of this other thing. I'm going to always be available for them. Um, Whatever it is, we find ways to feel better, to feel good, but we haven't learned how to be with discomfort. And not all discomfort is bad, but we've learned that. We've learned that all discomfort is bad. This is how my life should be. And when it's not that way, then I need to fix it.
Yeah, so I can pretty much say that most of mine stems from when I was younger. Um, you know, and so I told you on our last call where, I was telling you about some of the protocols that I use for nootropics and peptides and that kind of stuff. And one protocol I just finished using was actually for my brain. You get older, things, memory kind of slips away and all that kind of stuff. So this one was designed to help uh heal some of those areas that have just aged. And that protocol went for the last 10 days. In the last 10 days, I have had it worked because I mean it's just like I'm having all of these memories coming rushing
Mm,
forward from generally from childhood. And I'm just like, what is going on? And along with those memories are emotions. And it's just been an experience. They haven't controlled me in a way, but I'm just very conscious of the fact that where did this come from? Why did this pop up? And then trying to backtrack and say what stimulated this memory and or what
yeah.
triggered it. And sometimes it's what something somebody says, something somebody does, a tone of the way someone talks, and I'm just like, huh, I didn't think these were still able to affect me.
Yeah.
And the protocols that I use basically just brought them to the forefront where I believe that they've always been in the background running,
Hmm.
but now I'm aware of it.
Yeah.
And and each time this happens, I'm like, man, this thing with Nat's going to be just
Yeah. Yeah. It feels
but,
like it's divinely
but
orchestrated that all of that is happening right
so
before this.
mhm. So when we're talking about things that we think should be things that or should happen, they're not necessarily what we want. It's what we were taught to expect. So let's go back to that some of that root as well, um, where we think that things should always be comfortable, and that to be uncomfortable is bad per se,
Mm.
when in
Yeah.
many cases it's really a sense of growth. It's a sense of pushing past your norm. Let's talk about that a little bit, where because that seems to be, especially in the modern age, I guess, is that people are, in my opinion, numb.
Mm,
They're kind of numb to really what they're doing now, what they're feeling now, and definitely where they're going. So, for a lot of people, it's natural that when you have something to do, you go, vacuum the house, or when there's something you don't want to do, you dust or you wash the car, things that you never would just want to go do, but the urge to not do something overpowers the urge to do something that you've never wanted to do. I mean, it's mind-boggling. I mean, it is. I've been there. I'm not pointing fingers at anybody except back at myself. I
yeah.
have been there. I have vacuumed the house. I have dusted the house. I have gone and vacuumed the car, and I'm just like, I'm looking for things to vacuum, looking for things to wash, or looking for things to fix, just so I don't have to go sit in front of my computer,
Yeah.
and
Oh,
write
yeah.
an article, or write another chapter in the book, or whatever the case. And I'm just like, and it's weird to feel, even myself, my brain go in that direction. It's like you all of a sudden you have this list of everything that's priorities, and vacuuming or dusting or whatever the case is at the very bottom, but all of a sudden your brain just reshuffles everything and it's at the top.
Yeah. Yeah. I
I'm sure
always,
everybody listening has since had that moment.
yeah.
And where does that come from? I mean,
Yeah.
is the fact of not wanting to do something really that powerful for us?
It is. It is. And let's dive into it. And I'm, by the way, I'm smiling in recognition. Like I've done that. I joke about it. I was like, I love
Yeah,
procrastination because it helps me get done all the things that I forgot that I said I was going to do. Uh, you know.
that's good. That's a good reframing. That's very good.
Except that I don't get to complete the thing that I really want to do. Not to say that the other things I don't want to do, but it's like, oh yeah, I'll get to that. Well, I got to it now because procrastination.
Okay.
Um, so and regards that, like I've come to the point where I start to see myself doing it, right? Where it's like my body takes over, even though I'm aware of it. Even though, I'm like, okay, I'm sitting down to write and I feel resistance. I feel the discomfort in my body. I don't like that feeling. I want it to go away. And sometimes if I don't do my process, and I will just notice like, oh, look at that. I'm hungry now. I wasn't hungry moments ago, but now I'm hungry. And so I could get up and go get something to eat, or I could sit here and be with it, right? Or it's an interesting thing. And so what's happening here is that there's a part of ourselves. In my process, I talk about this. Like there's a part of ourselves that often young in nature that is kind of running the show. Scientifically, you could say it's our nervous system reacting to protect ourselves, to keep ourselves safe. Um, I talk about it more as a part of ourselves. There, are part of our psyche, and in my process, I talk about it in terms of archetypes. Like there are five archetypes, and um, if I name, there's the perfectionist, the overgiver, the prover, the no-needer, and the sacrificer. And what they do is they put up the walls, they put up the shields, the armor, all of that in um in ready mode for protection because it thinks that the thing that you're going to do is going to cause loss. It's going to cause rejection. It's going to, someone's going to be disappointed in you, or you're going to be disappointed in them. Whatever it is that this part of you thinks is going to happen, it doesn't want it to happen. And the only way it knows how to be with it is to shut it out. So it's going to find any way possible. It's going to make you think one thing one way and then think another thing the other way. It's going to create brain fog. It's going to cause you to get hungry. Or a big one for me was I would get sleepy, like really, really sleepy to the point where like I couldn't do anything. It would like shut my system down. This happened a lot in college. I didn't know that this is what was happening. I just thought like, oh, I'm just tired. But whenever I was preparing for an exam or writing a paper, I was like, oh my God, I gotta sleep. I can't do this. So it's an interesting thing, right? And so it's like the body just takes over. It says, I'm gonna protect you at all costs. This thing that you want to do, it doesn't look like a good thing. It feels unsafe. There's a possibility that you're going to get ridiculed or criticized or judged, and we don't want that for you. And so we're
Right.
going to shut it down. The other important thing to just recognize though is that we the way through this is not to judge ourselves. Um,
Right.
the protection, the shield, the hardness, we all needed it at some time because we didn't know better. We didn't have the
Right.
understanding. We did what we needed to do. And so, I really invite you and, others that may experience this to meet ourselves with compassion, to meet ourselves with curiosity, to know that this is our humanity. We get to work with it. We don't have to blame it or berate it, to get better. In fact, I found that, um, if this part of you is acting out of love to keep you safe, berating it, judging it as wrong, only makes that part of ourselves feel more unsafe and pull up the shields more, right? But if we can be with that part of ourselves with compassion, with appreciation, then, it starts to feel safe enough to let down its guard and to let you in. And when we can be with that, it starts to change its behavior. And we start to change our behavior because we don't feel that resistance anymore, that inner protection.
So, but it's not really logical thinking per se.
No,
I
no,
mean,
not at all.
this comes
Yeah.
from a very deep down primal aspect of our brain, correct?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a challenge because in our society, we've been taught to problem solve, to think rationally, to figure
Right.
things out. And so when we feel that, we automatically go up into our heads trying to figure out, trying to reason with ourselves. And that's actually an escape, and like, I've spent years just trying to work it out in my head, but not really living it, not facing it, right?
Hmm.
And it only got me to like living here in my head and not going through it.
Yeah, exactly. So, but it's not the fight or flight that people are so used to hearing about. It's different than that.
Mm,
I mean,
honestly,
if the tiger's coming after you, you're not going to stop and vacuum.
it's true. True. In a way, it is the stress response. It is the fight or flight or the freeze. And I think there's also the fawn as well. And I don't know that deeply about those states. But it's the reason why it's more chronic is because if there's a tiger chasing you, you're gonna run, or you're gonna do what you've learned or not learned to do, to either fight back, to flee, to hide, whatever, right? What we're dealing with here is not something that is real in front of us. It's fabricated in our minds.
Right.
And so our bodies and our minds don't know how to deal with that. It's not here for us. It's here in the story. And but we still feel the discomfort, right? We can think anything. We can imagine anything and immediately feel the discomfort in our bodies, right? And especially if it's charged, especially if it's something that we haven't dealt with, we can feel that in our bodies, and then we forget that we just thought it, right? Like there's
Right.
this guy I used to follow, Kyle Cease. He was a comedian. He turned into like spirituality, and he shared this story about how when we think about something, we project it forward. It's like we draw a picture of a monster, and then we're afraid of that monster because we forgot that we drew it, right? And
I
so
like
that's
that.
what's
Yeah.
happening, is that our minds come up with a thought as a way of protection, right? Um, as a way of reminding us, oh, remember, don't go there. Remember what happened last time, or the last several times, when you spoke up and you got ridiculed, or you spoke up and you were made to feel wrong, or you spoke up and no one listened, right? Remember how bad that felt? Let's not go there. Let's not go there again. And so the mind is constantly trying to plug all the holes, but can't, because it's infinite, right? The mind's always going to keep creating scenarios,
Right.
and then tries to plug the scenarios it just created, and it becomes this endless thing, and your body feels more and more resistant to going forward.
Okay. So let's along so with that in mind then, so you've got the dragon or the monster that you created, but you forgot you created. And then you have the five archetypes that are again something that was created in essence. So let's talk about each of those because I think those are an integral part of your process. So let's explain to people the five archetypes and why they exist.
The first is the perfectionist. The perfectionist is it shows up, and the way it behaves is that it wants to be right, and it works really hard to not be wrong. And perfectionist shows up in terms of like you're always tweaking what you're creating. The perfectionist doesn't have a problem starting over. It likes to start over if it's like on this path, and says, okay, well, this isn't working, or it's not right enough, and so I'm just going to start over. That's the perfectionist. The overgiver is it shows up when it believes it has to give more in order to receive back, and it feels uncomfortable receiving anything of value if it doesn't have something to give in return. Okay. The classic overgiver is someone that gives a lot and undercharges in terms of like a business context. The prover is someone that believes that they need to do a lot, accomplish a lot to feel of value. So they're always doing, they're always accomplishing. They don't really take rests. It's hard for them to take a rest. They might feel uncomfortable doing nothing, or feel like it's laziness. They're often on to the next project before giving themselves credit for the last one. Um, then there's the no-needer. The no-needer is someone who believes that they have to be strong. They're often taking care of other people's needs before their own. They have a hard time asking for help. They have a hard time receiving help, even when it's freely given. Um, they have a hard time being vulnerable because they see it as a weakness. Um, a weakness in the sense of then they can't be strong for other people. And the no-needer tends to
Right.
be the rock for other people. The last is the sacrificer, and the sacrificer has learned that they are either too much and they have to tone themselves down. Maybe they've been told they're too much to handle, or too sensitive, or too emotional, or they ask too many questions. They've been made wrong for the way that they've been, and so they tone themselves down. Or they've learned that what they want is too much. That like what they want to put out in the world is too much, or what their body work is too much for people to understand, too out there, too woo-woo, too whatever. And so they tend to rein themselves in and put out something that is maybe watered down. It's not really what they want, or they water themselves down. It's not who they really are, but they do it to fit in because it feels safer. All right. So we talked briefly at the beginning that the thing that you're bringing is a feeling of doubt about leveling up your business, or bringing it to a certain level. There's 5 steps to this process. The first is identifying your protector archetype. There are 5 archetypes. So we're going to identify which ones are most active in this situation, in this circumstance that you've brought to us. We're going to get to know its mindset and behaviors. And then we're going to do this process that I call allow and be with. Afterwards, we'll declare your greatness, and then we'll integrate everything. So let's jump into the first step then, is identifying your inner protector archetype. When you were thinking about your business, bringing it to this level that you desire, and you feel, yeah, you're noticing whatever's happening in your body as you're thinking about it. I'm going to ask you some questions, and then we'll kind of narrow down which of the archetypes.
Okay.
In thinking about this situation, do you feel like there's a tendency to want to get it right, but worried about getting it wrong?
Yes.
Okay. So that's perfectionist. Is there any tendency to want to give a lot, to give more, and like feel like you have to give more before you receive in return?
Yes.
Okay. So that's overgiver. Is there any tendency to, this is somewhat similar to the overgiver, but any tendency to want to do more, achieve more, or like overcome more in an attempt to be valued by others? You feel like
To a degree.
okay, yeah, before you can be at this next level, you have to almost like prove yourself by doing a lot or overcoming a lot first.
Oh,
No, okay. So that's the prover earner, and we're gonna no to that. And then is there any feeling like you have to show like you have it all together? That you have to like appear strong, do it on your own, not ask for help?
that would be a double yes.
Okay. That's what we call a no needer. And then the last is, do you feel like there's any tendency to hold back because you don't want to come across as too much, or the thing that you're creating feels, like you're worried that people will think that it's too much for them to handle, too much for them to accept, too out there? Any of that happening here? No? Okay.
No.
That's the sacrificer. So that's a no to that. Okay. So we got perfectionist, overgiver, and no needer. For the purpose of today, we're gonna dial in on one. So in thinking about the 3 of those, which one feels like it has a couple ways to look at this? Which one feels most alive? Like which one's like, if they're like standing in a lineup, which one's like, has its lights on and you want to pick that one?
There's the sacrificer, the overachiever, and the no needer.
Um, so so the 3 that you picked were the perfectionist. That's the one that wants to is like focused on trying to get things right, worried about getting it wrong. It keeps on tweaking
Okay.
things.
Okay.
Then you have the overgiver. The overgiver is focused on like wanting to give a lot and doesn't let itself receive back because it feels like it hasn't given enough yet. And then the last one is the no needer, which you said times two. The no needer is the one that feels like it has to show up strong, that it can't be vulnerable. It has to have it together. It
Yeah,
doesn't like
that
to
would be
ask.
it.
That would be it.
That would that would be at the
Oh,
primary. Yeah.
okay. All right. So we'll jump in with the no needer.
So staying on this part of the topic, where do the archetypes come from? Where, I mean, are these through events of someone's childhood or their need to conform? What's the root of the archetypes
All of what you
in
just
most people?
shared, all of what you shared, I see these archetypes as coping mechanisms. It's what we as brilliant kids. So I think it's important to share that seeing this in yourself doesn't mean that you're wrong, doesn't mean that you're broken, doesn't mean that you need to be fixed. Instead, it's to pat yourself on the back, to embrace yourself for the little kid that you were, the brilliant person that you were, that did what needed to be done to get your needs met, to feel loved, to
Mhm.
feel valued. And all of this is just conditioning, right? Like um doing a lot or giving a lot could be seen as people pleasing. It could be that it's what you needed to do because mom and dad were busy and you're trying to get their attention. You're trying to be seen and heard. When you did that, they applauded you, they embraced you, and you learned, oh, I need to do this to get this, right? Um, or the sacrificer is like, mom and dad had a lot on their hands, or maybe they had a big family and they were stressed out. Maybe there was only one parent in the house. And so the sacrificer learned that, oh, no, I can't ask for this because when I ask for this, they yell at me. So I don't like that. So I'm not going to ask for that anymore. I'm going to water it down. Right. So these are like just kind of innocent responses to life. And and it became our way of being. It became our identity. It became our role in life, right? I am valued because I do this. I am loved because I do this. I avoid loss or I avoid pain or I
Right.
avoid stress if I do this. And so I'm going to do this because it seems to make sense. It seems to work. It may not always work, so and that is sometimes how it gets becomes installed more permanently in our system is that it doesn't work the same way all the time, right? Like if mom and dad says, or whoever raised you says, okay, be a good kid, and then you learn that being a good kid means they're happier, then you're like, okay, I'm going to be a good kid. But then if you're a
Right.
good kid and mom and dad aren't happy, then the kid doesn't have full agency to know what went wrong, thinks that they're the problem. They think, oh, I must not have been perfect enough, or I must not have been good enough. And so they decide that they're the problem and they're the one that need to fix it because they don't have the capacity to understand that they
Right.
were never responsible for their parents' feelings, but they were made to believe that they were.
Right. Okay. And along with, I mean, it it is simple, and yet it's not simple because those are your archetypes become something that they become the foundation of your personality.
Yeah.
And so your process is not a matter of of saying, well, you're a sacrificer, so we're going to take that out of you. That's not your process. Your process, like that's who you are. So now let's take that and understand that that is part of your personality. That's part of one of the things that's driving you, correct?
I want to
And then
tweak that a
what?
little. I want to tweak it a little bit.
Sure.
I wouldn't say it's who they are. I think it's who they've learned to be. Um,
Okay. All right.
and it's who they learn to be and who they've identified as like, oh, I'm someone that does this and I need to fix me. No, it's I often say that the experiences we have don't define us. They just shape us. Um
Mhm.
and so we start with that point because it serves as an anchor point through which we can then access what's happening underneath, what are the beliefs, what are the habits that are driving us so that we can
Mhm.
clear that resistance. Um, and you know, over time, you may start to act less as a sacrifice. You might move more into um, your your essential self, your divine self, whatever word you want to use there, whatever label you want to give it. It's like you start to be more naturally who you are coming from your
Right.
core self, right? So that as a sacrificer, it might look like you embody your power more. You're able to take up more space. You're showing up more fully as yourself, right?
Mhm.
As a perfectionist, it might look like instead of focusing so much on details, you're able to relax more. You're able to be more playful, um you know because when you're playful, you're in the moment and you're not focused so much on the details, which a perfectionist tends to zero in on, right?
Right.
So these are yeah, so your question is yeah, like we're not eradicating, we're not saying um we're not trying to eradicate this way of being out of your system. It served a
Right.
purpose, right? But we do want to open up the door for a newer way of being, one that's a fuller expression, one that's more liberated, right? I see the archetypes as ways that we confine ourselves. Um, we put ourselves in if you will, like a small box and say, this is the way that I need to show up in the world so that I don't get hurt and so that I'm valued. And it's such a
Right.
limited expression.
So in when we were doing the process together, we referred to, or at least I referred to the archetypes as like a shield or like a suit of armor, that our subconscious mind creates them to protect us.
Yeah.
And in part of what you did, which I thought was brilliant, is you said, let's see what happens when you just simply put the shield down. It's still there, but it's just down. And you're not holding it up and on guard. It's just, but it's there. And I'm telling you, that was a tremendous breakthrough.
When we can be fully be with our experience, it shifts. But we've been taught
Yeah.
to um, avoid, to distract, to try to work on ourselves. Not to say that working ourselves isn't important, but sometimes in this case here, um, being with and meeting ourselves with this kind of loving awareness, with compassion, can really do a lot. It's simple. It's not always easy. It's definitely simple, and it's I find to be pretty powerful. So with that said, we're going to move into declaring your greatness. And so what I found is that not only do we protect to avoid being called incompetent or weak, all the ones that were for you, but we also kind of like hold back from being as bold as we could be, whether that's comes from the sensitivity of not wanting to be seen as egotistic, and there's sometimes that tendency to judge others, like again we talked about this at the beginning, like who do they think they are to be walking around like God's gift or whatever? But like, who are we not? Right? In the same sense, like we don't have to be cocky, but it's like when we have a sensitivity to that, we think that when we're standing in our greatness, we are being cocky. And we conflate the two, and it's not true because we don't want to be seen as cocky, or like in the business world, because we don't want to be seen as salesy. We might go the other way where we don't sell at all, or sales is okay, but we don't have to be sleazy salesy. We could be just giving someone what they're asking for, right? What could help them.
Yeah.
If we were to bring this back to this, if you, and here's the question for you, if you couldn't be judged for who you are, if there was no need to censor or filter, and if your worth and value were never questioned, who are you here to be? Feel it from your body. Don't like, and yeah, I'll leave it there. And then if you want additional questions, I can ask that or ask it in a different way.
Oh, that was a good question. That was a very good question. So
yeah, what comes to you
when you ask that, I need to put that into words, because there was a internally, how do I
describe the
this?
feeling to me instead of trying to come up with the words. Describe the feeling to me.
So I felt like I got bigger inside. Like,
yeah,
if you've ever watched if you ever seen the Incredible Hulk, that transformation, all of a sudden you're just like, but it wasn't that big, but it was just this, like this. I felt my body straighten. I felt my chest come out a little bit more, and a surge of energy just kind of just radiated from inside.
Yeah.
Not from external into me, from inside out.
Yeah.
That's what I feel. That's the best way I can describe it. That was profound. And then there was just this lightness that this weight that came off my shoulders. I'm just like, well, that was a very odd sensation, but I'm just like, that worked really, really well. And as I said earlier, is that I said I was just kind of floating through the rest of the day, going, wow. I mean, my shoulders were good, and I had started the day with that tension in that one spot, that one tension, and that went away. And just like, huh, okay, I didn't like that shield after all, but the shield's still there,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
but now it becomes more of it becomes more. The best way that I can describe this is the archetypes now become like a tool belt.
Mm-hmm.
And I can pull the archetype out when I need it instead of letting it control me and guiding me through my day. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, it reminds me that I think one time I said that the archetypes are like to um portals to freedom, or portals to joy. It's portals to your essential self, meaning that you can use them as doorways, as entry points to
Mm-hmm.
let go of more of what's not serving you, right? Because the thing with self-sabotage is that or resistance, self-protection, is that it will find all the ways to protect you. And one of the things that self-sabotage loves is distraction. And so I think the reason this process works is because it's very specific, right? You come with a specific situation, and then we look at a specific entryway into it. Um, when people try to look at self-sabotage as a whole, don't know where to enter, then they're kind of lost. And that's what self-sabotage likes. It likes you to be lost because it helps you avoid getting into the thing that, the traps it set up to, so you're like, don't come here. Like, it's, I picture like Indiana Jones and the tombs and like, don't come here. We're going to set up all the traps because this is a thing you don't want to go to. And that's kind of what's
Right.
happening here. It's like, let's set up, okay, smoke screen. All right. And then we're gonna create the stabbing pain in your abdomen. Okay. You're still coming? Okay, let's give you something else. Right? And so most people feel the first thing and they're like, oh, this feels like the thing that I had in years ago, and I don't like that. So okay, that's fine. I'll just close the door. I'll go this other way. And what I'm
Hmm.
inviting people to do is like, oh, hey, you're actually more than the little person that faced that years ago. You're a grown adult now. You have more capacity. You're more than you as a human being. You're this, greater self. And you can now, from that place, be with this discomfort and walk through all the stages that your inner protector is saying, no, don't go here. You can go there
Right.
and you can be with it all. And then suddenly that inner protector's like, oh, things are different, right? You walk through and you came to the center, came to the root, and you're letting me know that you're okay and that I can be okay too. And then that changes things.
So
It
now it's
changes your
learning.
experience. Say that again?
I said, now it's learning as well.
Right. Right.
Hmm.
Because it's in this little world. It's like, oh, remember the last time this happened? We were little kids and felt scary and I didn't know how to deal with it. And the only way I
Right.
knew how to
Hmm.
deal with it is to try to control myself or to control the circumstances,
Right.
right? But that's not you anymore. And you can't control the circumstances, even though we might try. We know we can't control. We can try to control ourselves, but that leads to all sorts of issues as well, right?
Hmm.
Chronic health stuff, um, feeling unfulfilled, not having the right type of relationships we want when we hold ourselves back, right?
Hmm.
So,
Right.
and we've learned to tolerate that we learned to tolerate that because we've deemed not being accepted or not being loved or not being valued a worse case scenario than all the health stuff and the
Right.
relationship issues.
So true. I mean, I see it with clients all the time. I'm sure you do. We see it just in the general society of I would much rather it's almost like qualifying the pain. I'd much rather be in this physical pain than in that mental anguish. When the mental anguish is really your imagination running rampant, as to where the physical pain is physical pain.
Right.
And
Right.
and we make that choice
Yeah. Yeah.
because that emotional pain is so deep, and depending on where and when it originally occurred, um, it I don't I'm trying to figure out a way to describe that because it almost is intertwined through everything.
Mm.
So when you
Yeah.
feel it, it's almost like you feel everything. But when you have
Yeah.
your physical pain, it's that's when we're in the now. It's like, well, I feel the physical pain now, but when I feel the mental pain, it's intertwined all the way back to when I was 5 years old or
Yeah.
whatever the case, and it's deeper, and the mind just simply says, no, I don't want to go through that again. I've been trying to forget
Right.
about this. I have been
Right.
trying to protect you from this. I've been trying to do this. I've been trying to do this. That's why I didn't have you do this. That's why I didn't have you do this. That's why I didn't have you do this. That's why I didn't have you
Yeah.
do this. It was all
Yeah.
because of I don't want to feel this again.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I want to say here that in my process, I don't have you or anyone go back to dig up
Right.
old stuff.
Exactly.
Um,
Right.
because that's it's done with. Um, but the way that you respond to that old stuff is here in the present. And that's what we look
Correct.
at. We look at,
Right.
your reactions to the old and how it's still running your life now. We meet
Hmm.
that,
Right.
and that is what allows the shift. We don't have to dig up the
Right.
past. We don't have to go there at all.
Exactly. Exactly. And you didn't when we went through, we spent an hour and a half together. And at no time was I uncomfortable. At no time did I have a breakdown, or actually even feel any type of mental anguish. Although I thought about some stuff, like, okay,
Yeah.
well, that's interesting. But that's all it was. It was like, well, that's interesting. And or I would feel that twinge in my shoulder, or that twinge in my back,
Hmm.
and such when you did something, you would say something like, oh, well, that's weird. So that's where it's resting in my body. Okay, good.
Yeah.
And then by the
Yeah.
time we were done, that was had just filtered away. But at no time did I go back to this, oh, I have to, don't make me relive all of this. It's like, that's not what this is all about. That's what makes this thing so powerful. And that's why I wanted to get you on the show so that people understand that, you don't have to continually dig up and relive pain. That's not how it works. It's not how the mind works.
Yeah.
And I'd believe that it's also not something that has to, um well it doesn't have to be reinforced over and over and over again. However, one of the things that you said was that it might you may have I'll let you describe. You described it like the onion. Let's tell people how the onion works.
Hmm. Sure. So I think what I shared with you is that this process is not a one and done sort of thing. That the system is well integrated into the body, and so you may need to meet up or to meet yourself with or meet your resistance again, face your resistance again. It doesn't mean that you failed. It doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with you. It's just that over time, we've built up our defenses. How you defend yourself in showing up in business may be different than how you defend yourself in a relationship. Like a relationship with a life partner, a relationship with a boss, a relationship with your kids. How you protect may show up differently. And so, with the archetypes, it's possible to have all of them be active. And it's okay. And I often joke like they like to tag team each other, right? They're not mutually
Worldwide
exclusive.
wrestling.
Yeah. They're not mutually exclusive. It's kind of like on a spectrum of the ways that we've learned to protect. And so, the perfectionist might call on the like, hey, this guy's he's getting too close here. Let's turn on those lights over here. Turn on the sacrificer over there. And let's make sure you can often think of it as I'm mixing metaphors here, but like a club bouncer, right? Like, no, you're not allowed to go in here.
Right.
This is no, you're not allowed. Please, you don't qualify. But I think there's something beautiful that happens when. So I started to kind of plant the seed that self-sabotage is an act of love.
Mhm.
Um,
Right.
because it's this part of you, often young, that is protecting you out of love to keep you safe.
Mhm.
And also the ways that we engage in sometimes is because like, I mentioned the woman that felt resistance making time to exercise and plan her meals. And what came out from there was that um, when she was growing up, she didn't get a lot of attention and support. She often felt abandoned. And
Mhm.
as a result, an adult, as a mom, she didn't want her kids to feel abandoned. And so she chose the other extreme to always be available for them. So she did that out of love, but not
Right.
realizing that in doing that, she was abandoning herself again, right? She was treating herself the way that she is used to being treated, not getting attention, not having time. And what we discovered was, well, this, what I'm sharing with you, and some other beliefs about what it meant to be a mom, or what they needed versus what she needed. And again, when we address the root of that, and she could be with any discomfort, any emotion, any sensations that came up with that, she felt freer, just like you shared. Like you're floating, you were in the flow, you were just so productive. And because
Exactly.
it takes a lot of energy, so much energy, to feed the protection, to be hyper vigilant on, you know, preventing all the possible things that could go wrong. It takes so much energy. And so
Hmm.
when you release that, it's like, oh my God, this energy can now support me to do what I want to do. Or I feel, or it could go off and do what it needs to do. And I have this freedom to just be. It's pretty amazing. I mean, even though I created it, I'm still in awe every time. Like you and I, we
Right.
did this session 2 days ago. I haven't talked to you since. And so, to hear your experience of it
Yeah.
and what you experienced after it is like, wow, like I'm really amazed and touched.
Yeah, actually, and I think I don't know if you saw it or not. I sent you a video that I came across. Did you watch that at all?
I didn't get to see it yet. Yeah.
So watch that video because it was really interesting because I wasn't looking for it. Synchronicity just happened to bring it into my peripheral, and it was very interesting, very sh relatively short. But I'm like, I was looking at it, and it was an animation. It's a very powerful animation. I posted it on a couple of my groups, and but it was like, this is how I feel now.
Mm,
And it was like, and you just got to watch it. And those of
okay.
you who are, it's called Freedom. So no, Kingdom. It's called Kingdom. And it's very, very interesting. It starts out with the characters feeling being bound and controlled, and then it was you it was then somebody, they didn't actually go through a process, but it was as if they did, and all of a sudden they were free.
Mm,
And
wow.
that was what the kingdom is. The kingdom is we are our own kingdom. We are free, and free of the confines of things around us. But it was powerful, and I'm just like, and that's how I felt since yesterday, the
Mm,
day before. It was just like, this is something else. So
wow.
To be with these statements and just notice in the same way we did in the beginning part, notice how what exists in your body so that you can create more space for it, right?
Right.
Um, so it's like, again, I embody greatness, and sometimes people think I'm average. I embody greatness, and sometimes I think I'm average, right? I embody greatness, and sometimes people are disappointed in me. I embody greatness, and sometimes I disappoint other people. And just feel it in your body, continue to be with it. Yeah.
It feels good, actually. It really does. It allows me to still maintain a humbleness, and gives just simply takes the pressure off.
Mm,
Uh,
yeah.
going back to that perfectionism. It's like, hey, I embody greatness, but hey, I'm not perfect.
Yeah.
That's my wife. So yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to share this quote, one of my favorite from Osho. He says, "Don't move the way fear makes you move. Move the way love makes you move. Move the way joy makes you move." So, in addition to being with these statements, also be with what it is to embody greatness, right?
Hmm.
This is something that feels like it came up in you and it felt great. Like, as your posture changed and your energy shifted, lean into that more. And even not just with your work, but with the mundane, like wake up embodying greatness, or remember, stepping into embodying greatness. So it becomes more familiar to you rather than
Right.
unfamiliar, right? Because for you and for a lot of us, familiar is, oh, I, I feeling incompetent or feeling average or worrying about disappointing others feel familiar in our body. And so it's easy to fall back into it. But
Right.
feeling familiar of embodying greatness, oh, I like it. I like how it feels, but it's not something that we fall back into easily because when it's not practiced.
And I think from what you just said, is that we're all expelling this energy. And the way that I interpret that is that we're expelling this energy and it's there. And it's either there protecting us, or you can now choose to, is it going to be your archetypes defending you against the world that's constantly become bombarding you, or are you going to use it as energy to get into a flow state and get the things done, or are you going to use the energy to go out and do things for you? But regardless, and we say this in our trainings as well, is that regardless, you know, it's always going to be there. So why not put that energy to the greatest use?
Yeah.
And I think that's where I felt the freedom. It's like I just feel like I have all this energy. And I
Hmm.
feel now I can direct that energy.
Yeah.
And I got a lot of stuff done.
Sure. Sure. I guess my response to that is what you were saying when you were sharing earlier about the shield and putting it down and just having it there is,
Right.
you know, because we've spent lifetimes defending ourselves or building up our defenses, we've learned to
Mhm.
feel safe within the walls or with behind the shield of those defenses. And so we
Right.
feel a little bit naked, or it feels unfamiliar. Like it's just kind of like if you were you like you're used to wearing a seatbelt and you're driving and you don't wear a seatbelt. There's something that feels off and it feels uncomfortable, and you're like looking for that thing, right? Or like kids with their blankies, they're like, oh, I need my lovey, or I need my blankie or whatever, because it helps me feel supported or comfy or whatever. And when you're without it, it feels
Right.
empty, or like just something's not right. And so the same happens with our shields, is like when we're asking you to put it down, it's going to feel a little off. Um,
Mhm.
and so, but to recognize like, oh, you can still have them, but you just don't have to have them up all the time, right?
Right.
There's sometimes we do need a shield in our lives, right? But we don't need them all the time. And so
Right.
to have them handy, sure, why not? And over time, your your experience, your perception of of your over time, your experience changes where you can be without your shield more of the time. Like you come out of it and you're
Right.
like, oh, well, this feels okay. But at first, it's like a baby bird opening his eyes or coming out of the shell.
Right.
It feels vulnerable, and you want to
Right.
retreat, right? But over
Mhm.
time, you're like, okay, I can do this, and that's what I'm inviting people into. Is like, oh, okay, yeah, let's step into more of you. And this just comes up to mind right now. I led a class about this work. It was in a different format, but in any case, um w- this could be an experiment that your listeners do right now. Um think about shrinking your energy. Okay. So, yeah, think about shrinking your energy and just notice how it feels in your body. I'll do it with you right now, Ross.
Okay.
So think about shrinking your energy or shrinking yourself, in the way that we often do in defense. And just notice how that feels in your body, and go ahead and tell me how it feels in your body to like shrink and to get smaller.
Feels weak, feels much
Mm-hmm.
weaker, feels intimidated, uh, less than.
Hmm. Okay.
As far
So,
as in my body, I feel like almost like the beginning of like a queasiness in my stomach.
mm,
And it's that feeling of when you're in a situation, could be in business or personal even, where things are not going the right way. You're just like, this isn't going right. You might be in business, you might be losing a deal or in a
mm-hmm.
negotiation is like, and you just get that queasiness, like, oh, this isn't going the way I direct wanted it to. Or in your personal life, you may have received some bad news or something. It's just that, you know, it's just very, very centered in my stomach.
Got it.
And I see an image of somebody balled up.
Hmm. Okay, perfect. All right. So, open your eyes, just kind of shake that off a little bit. Um, so now imagine or just do like expand your energy out. And not just outside your body, but like fill your whole body. Like, that kind of like that person that was just balled up. Imagine that body expanding and just filling your whole body first, and then expanding out beyond your body. Kind of like being puffed up in a sense, but even bigger than that. And when you're there, share with me how that feels.
Feels big, feels expansive, feels energized,
Mm-hmm.
feels like light.
Hmm.
Not as light as weight. It feels like light,
Mm-hmm.
uh, all encompassing.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So, so it's interesting then, right, that our reaction, our learned reaction, and it's natural. It's natural to shrink in fear, but then it becomes a habit, and we think that to feel safe and to feel safe, we need to shrink. But what you felt there, and I've done this other times as well, is most people feel stressed, confined, queasy,
Hmm.
disempowered, uh,
Hmm.
and and the flip side, if they expand out as being more fully themselves, allowing more of their essence to be expressed, they
Hmm.
feel buoyant, light, expansive, strong, stable, right?
Right.
So essentially, what my process is inviting people to do is to step out of their habitual shrinking and defending and hiding and allow more of their essence to be expressed. And it's a new way of being, or it's a way
Hmm.
of being that you've forgotten how to be,
Right.
right? And and then the invitation then is when things happen that you don't like, stay open, stay expansive, and you can be with it. But if you shrink and and you feel stressed, who's to say, are you really feeling, this is where the mind makes up stories like, oh, th this thing that happened is the thing that makes me feel bad. But what if
Hmm.
it's the shrinking that makes you feel bad,
Right.
right?
Exactly. Nice. Very good. Yes.
Yeah. What if
Hmm.
you could, and again, as a kid, authority figures, depending on what era you grew up in, you might have had physical punishment. So sure, natural, shrink, hide, avoid,
Hmm.
completely sane to do.
Right.
But the invitation then is you don't have to live your life that way. There, there's other possibilities. You may not be in that situation anymore, but you continue to live it because it feels familiar,
Right.
right? And to be not in it feels unfamiliar, kind of like that whole safety seat belt, not wearing it, or, you know, coming in a new situation. You just feel a little naked. It doesn't feel right. So sometimes we do go back into our little cave, or, because it feels more familiar and comfy, but it might not really be the um most liberated expression of who we are.
Exactly. All right. Well, that's fantastic. So, my friend, how can people get a hold of you?
Sure.
You got some things coming up here pretty soon too, don't you?
Yeah. I'm working on this process that I shared with you, this resistance release technique. I offered as individual sessions. I've offered it in some groups, but I'm
Mhm.
putting together an audio course to lead people through it. Probably by the time that this airs, it will be done. And I've set up a link that people can go to. It's inquisitivejourneys.com. Inquisitivejourneys.com/RR for resistance release. And I
Fantastic. And
guess
we'll
you'll
put
you'll
that
have
down in the
that.
comments as well. Mhm.
Yeah. So people can go there and they can it'll just be a short course, audio with some worksheets so that they can follow through the process themselves. Um,
Mhm.
and then I also have this one other the audio course is going to be a paid course, but it's going to be um introductory. It is not going to be a lot of money. But I get everyone's at a different place in their life. So
Right.
I also have a mindfulness practice that's really the cornerstone of the resistance release process. And they can go to inquisitivejourneys.com/bewith, BEWITH. And that's a free
Okay.
thing. They can download also audio that guides people through that process of becoming more present in the moment,
Mhm.
being, giving voice to what's here.
Right. Okay. Beautiful. Listen, Nat's stuff is amazing. We've been friends for over 15 years, so
Wow.
we
Yeah.
definitely um have worked together for a long time. We've done programs together. We've stayed in touch because we just jive with each other so well. It's when you don't talk to somebody for a while, and then when you do, you can just pick up right where you left off.
Hmm.
That's when you know you've got the magic of friendship. And so his stuff is good. I'm telling you, I've been through this process when he was first telling me about it, a couple of months ago
Yeah.
and such. I'm like, I want to experience this. I want to be part of this launch for you. There's nothing in it for me except for the fact that I'm able to help my friend. And but you're going to love it. It will just, it's a game changer. And so I really want you, if anything, right now, get the free the free piece. Start there. If you like that, you're gonna love the pay process. So, Nat, anything else?
No, Russ, again,
No. Okay. This is gonna be so
I'm
cool.
I'm so very grateful. Thank you so much for your kind words, your vote of confidence. It means so much to me. And I hope that, together we can reach a lot of people with this and support them.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, this is some new stuff. This is cutting edge. And I have been, involved with a lot of different types of methods and techniques. This is by far the simplest, the easiest, and the most powerful.
Mm,
And, we, Gary and I say this all the time, is that it doesn't have to be complicated to work. Some people just make it complicated so you think that they know what they're doing. And that's just not that way. He's just like, listen, I can get this problem taken care of, 1 hour, you're done. And then move on, get on with your life. Don't spend, all this time, wallowing in self-pity or fear or, scarcity. Let yourself go, expand, and just be the real you. And that's what this is all about. That's what this whole series is about, regardless. And we want you to just be better. So, Nat, thank you very much.
Thank you
And
so much, Ross.
we'll be in touch.
All right.
Thanks,
Appreciate
buddy.
you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.